Know that we'll finish Beowulf today. I'm sure by now you think we'll never finish Beowulf, but we'll see. We'll get really close. We left off on Wednesday with talking about this thief goes into the dragon's barrow, steals a cup, and at that point, the speaker tells us a story. Notice how many stories get told within the story of Beowulf, by the way. So we're told, line 2231. So the guy snatches a jeweled cup, 2231, first half. Second half. There were many such antique riches in that earth hall. For in ancient days, an unknown man had thought to hid them carefully there, the rich legacy of a noble race, precious treasures. In earlier times, that is, before this guy buries all this treasure, death had seized them all. All right? And he who still survived, alone from that nation's army, lingered there. What does it mean to linger?
There be traces of you still there? Or like, stay around?
Well, we're told this one person, this one survivor, lingers. We don't use the word linger very often. We use the word loiter, which is similar in meaning, but it's not the same. Loiter means to wait around in a place that you shouldn't be waiting. Okay? Linger just means to wait, to hold on, to just waste breath. All right? Famous 20th century, and the author's name just right out of my head, Samuel Beckett. Famous 20th century theater of the absurd play, the prototypical, the preeminent theater of the absurd play, Waiting for Godot. Beckett could just as easily have titled that Lingering for Godot. He doesn't, however, because lingering implies you're just barely holding on. Like you can't die yet, but you want to, all right? So, this guy lingers, we're told. That he might enjoy those ancient treasures for just a little while. Why the for just a little while? He's about to die. He knows he's about to die. And he wants to enjoy whatever these treasures are. They get described in some detail. Gold, cups, platters, flagons, things like that. So what does he do? A waiting barrow stood in an open field near the ocean waves. So someone had constructed a barrow in an open field. That tells us the barrow isn't dug into the ground. This barrow is constructed on top of an open field. So someone mounted up a huge mound of dirt with essentially an entrance that goes inside, and there's like a subterranean, but it's not subterranean literally, passage inside. You can visit these in England. There are some, northern Scotland, that you can go into that are 6,000 years old. Okay? Made out of slabs of stone that then dirt and stuff is put on top of. So, a waiting barrow stood in an open field near the ocean waves. In other words, it's on a cliff. It's on the top of a cliff overlooking the ocean. All right? New on the cape. That is, this is a new barrow. It's recently made. Safe with crafty narrow entrances, he bore within the noble wealth, the plated gold, that guardian of rings. That's, by the way, it's Hringa Hirda, that word Hirda that I wrote on the board the other day, that means shepherd, guardian, protector, king. It gets translated all those ways. That's the phrase, by the way, that Tolkien gets the title of his most famous novel from, The Lord of the Rings. Hirda, Lord, as well as protector, guardian, etc. Hrina, okay? A share worthy of a hoard, and he speaks a few words. Okay, so why is he speaking these words? He's the only one there. No one's listening to him. It's an interesting question when you think about it. Who's he speaking the words to?
God?
22:47. The speaker says, How thu nu hruza, hold you now, earth. He's speaking to the ground. He's speaking to the earth. Okay? Hold now, O thou earth, hold now, you earth. For heroes cannot the wealth of men. What has he just said about the wealth of men and heroes?
Heroes cannot hold.
Yeah. Why? They died. Where does the wealth, the speaker seems to be saying, we hold on to, go to? We heard it at the end of Hrothgar's homily. Hrothgar said, I ruled this way, Beowulf, for 50 years. Well, how did it end? How did the homily part, the story that he told, end just before that? So this guy who ruled the wide land, who had great power, all that kind of stuff, and then the slayer, of souls slipped a fiery dart in, and what does he do? He dies, hoarding all of his wealth, and what does his son do? He gives it away. Okay? Here, somebody's been hoarding all this wealth. Not necessarily the last guy living. The people have been hoarding it. And what is he going to do? He's going to put it in the ground. What good does money do, wealth do, in the ground? None. None. Why? It's not fulfilling its purpose. What is the purpose of money or wealth?
To be spent.
To be exchanged, to be spent. I give you $1, you give me something in return. I give you $100,000, you give me something in return. Used to be able to say, I give you $100,000, you give me a house. You can't do that in Murfreesboro anymore. You can't find a house for $100,000 in Murfreesboro. Believe me, some of my kids have tried. So, hold now, O thou earth, for heroes cannot the wealth of men. Lo, from you, long ago, those good ones first obtained it. From you, O earth, long ago, who are those good ones? The heroes? Possibly, more likely, the ancestors of the heroes. So what is he really saying about this wealth? Louder. It came from you, and it's going back to you. Almost, I'm not saying this is an illusion, okay? Almost, from dust thou art, and to dust you will return. It came from you, it's going back to you. But then he says, death and war and awful deadly harm have swept away all of my people who have passed from life and left the joyful hall. Now, the joyful hall, two meanings. One literal, one metaphorical. The literal meaning, the hall that they lived in. The metaphorical meaning, life. They've left the field. They've left life. Now have I none to bear the sword or burnish the bright cup, the precious vessel. All that host has fled. Now must the hardened helm of hammered gold be stripped of all its trim. The steward sleep who should have tended to this battle mask. Litotes. What are they sleeping? The sleep of death, the final sleep. So too, this warrior's coat. He's talking about holding up like a battle coat, a coat of chainmail, possibly. It should be wrapped around somebody. It has no owner anymore.
Okay, just to be clear, this is this guy like a ghost speaking, or is
No,
it like
this is a living, breathing person.
Okay.
He's putting all this stuff in the ground that should be where?
Okay. Makes more sense.
It should be worn by warriors and heroes and his lord, etc. And instead, it's all this pile of, at this point, junk. Why? It has no purpose anymore. Why do people throw away stuff that other people go and pick up? Because the people who go and pick up look at it and go, that's not junk. I can use that chair. But for the person who threw it away, it's no longer needed or wanted. Well, if all the people of his tribe are dead, they can't use it. He's the only one. Say the pile is as big as this room. Can he use that? No. Okay? So he says, so too this warrior's coat, which waited once, the bite of iron over the crack of boards, molders like its owner. It is rotting, just like Fred is rotting. The coat of mail cannot travel widely with the war chief beside the heroes. Because what happens to your belongings when you die? Go back to the wanderer and the seafarer. This speaker is almost like the final three of the Trinity speakers. Not Trinity religious in any sense. The threefold speakers. They all essentially say the same thing. It's Tolkien's idea that all of Anglo-Saxon literature is about one main theme: the death of humanity and everything it produces. Harp joy have I none, no happy song, nor does the well-schooled hawk soar high throughout the hall. Why? Because there's nobody there to teach it and train it, nor the swift horse stamp in the courtyards. Savage butchery has sent forth many of the race of men. Notice what the speaker there is saying about us. Notice the speaker is not saying what Hrothgar alluded to at the end of his story. Because at the end of his story, what does he say can take you? He says death. But then he gives a lot of varieties of death. It might be old age, it might be sickness, it might be fire, it might be the flood, or, excuse me, it might be a spear traveling through the air, it might be the sword, twice, he says, or you might just lie on your bed, lingering until your eyesight fails you. Okay? Here, what brings about the end of his tribe? Savage butchery. Question, comment?
No,
Okay.
Just said I thought.
So grieving, he mourned his sorrow alone after all. After all doesn't mean like, oh well. It means alone after the loss of everyone. This, I'm not saying they literally are. This speaker could easily be the wanderer who has not found a new lord, who has not found a new hall to call home. Okay? So, grieving. Unhappy sped both days and nights. Sped, they went by, until the flood of death broke upon his heart, and he finally dies. An old beast of the dawn, dragon, found that shining hoard standing open. Not like the dirt's been removed, it finds the entrance to the hoard. He who burning seeks the barrows, a fierce and naked dragon who flies by night in a pillar of fire. People on earth feared him greatly. It's his nature to find a hoard in the earth, where ancient and proud he guards heathen gold. I did see somebody out there. I kept thinking it was just my reflection. Notice, It is his nature. The poet is telling us this, okay? Not that speaker. The poet is telling us it is the nature of a dragon to do what? Find buried gold. And then do what? Plop itself down on top of it. Where ancient and proud he guards heathen gold, though it does him no good. Two things. Question?
Didn't we say that like dragons were considered like monsters and evil because of their like greed and hoarding and?
Yeah, that's kind of.
That's supposed to be like.
It's what we're getting to. This isn't the dragon of the book of Revelation. It's not Satan. It's not satanic. It's not a fallen angel. None of that.
Are they considered like? Are they like animals or like? Is it like the
Who knows?
smog type dragon that can?
Well, smog is a Germanic like this. It's not like smog. Smog's source is back here with this dragon. Germanic dragons, very different from Asian dragons. Asian dragons, Chinese dragons in Chinese lore, they're positive. They're good. They can bring you blessings. Not Germanic dragons. Germanic dragons are always evil, not again satanically, not that. They're just bad. They're greedy SOBs. You take something, they're going to kill you, and they're not going to kill you. If Sharana could take something, you're all dead, because the dragon's going to strike at all of you. Why? Because you're nearby. Okay,
Well, like,
we're going to see what the dragon does.
like a big animal, but able to hold grudges.
Like giant reptile with wings and breathes out. Most Germanic ones breathe out fire. So notice it guards heathen gold, and it doesn't do them any good. Why does it guard heathen gold? Why does it find a barrel with heathen gold in it? The poet is specific.
Is it that the gold becomes heathen gold after it's found by a dragon?
Nope.
I thought this was like
Nope.
honorable gold that.
Is he too evil for godly gold?
What's godly gold?
And didn't
Gold owned by Christians. Yeah.
Christians don't bury gold.
Oh.
Why? Why would people bury gold with a body?
because they want it with them in the afterlife.
Supposedly. The idea anthropologists say, says a little bit about what my feelings are towards some anthropological theories, are that they put that stuff in the barrow or in the grave so that it can help them on their way to the other life. What did the seafarer say about, though brother wants to strew the grave with gold? He says, it won't do any good. Why? Because when you die, if you accept the premise, there is a soul, and the soul goes on after death to one of two places, maybe three if you're Catholic and believe in purgatory. The soul can't do what? It's immaterial. It cannot pick up matter. So how are you going to take it with you? Okay? So, heathen gold is gold buried by with for heathens, though it does him no good. Your gloss tells you. The association, well, that's idiotic. The association of dragons and hoarded treasure is ancient and proverbial. I thought it actually made a comment about why it doesn't do them any good. Go back to the idea of quote unquote Christian gold. What supposedly writers of the New Testament, you even see it in the Old Testament, what are you supposed to do if you have wealth?
Disperse it.
Disperse it. You give alms. You help those who don't have gold. When I did a course, over 10 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, on, what was it called? Christian literature of the early Middle East. One of the things we read was a couple homilies by a famous church father, John Chrysostom, a little booklet called On Wealth and Poverty. And this was during the Occupy Wall Street stuff. So, the 99% versus the billionaire, rotten, dirty bastard, 1% and such. And one of the things Chrysostom talks about in this homily And not every, I don't even know if any of the students in the class were Christian or not. Anyways, is, if you have 2 shirts or 2 coats and somebody only has one, you're a thief. And this guy was a archbishop, patriarch of Constantinople. I mean, the highest you can get in Constantinople, the richest city in the world at the time. And he's telling his, many of whom, rich parishioners, you're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty, you're guilty. Why you have more than one pair of shoes? And there are people literally outside this cathedral right now with no shoes. I mean, talk about. And I mean, my students were like just squirming. I could tell. And we talk about it. Why? Because it's not being shared. Here, this gold, what's going to happen to this gold? It's going to stick it in the ground. It will do no good. So, 300 winters that threat to the people, that is the dragon, held in the ground his great treasury. So the dragon sits there for 300 years. The dragon doesn't get out and move. The dragon doesn't go out and eat. This is based on what we know about Germanic dragons, okay? He doesn't get up off that hoard until one man made him boil with fury. He took the cup. The motto of Hogwarts in the Harry Potter novels, never tickle a sleeping dragon. It's something like that. Why? Because the dragon wakes up. When dragons wake up, they're not fun. So, then the hoard was looted. How was the hoard looted? One piece was taken. We kind of think of looting as, you break into a Best Buy and everything gets taken out. No, this is, somebody breaks into Best Buy and takes one thing, electric keychain or something. Why does the guy steal it? He begs for peace from his Lord. He wants to end the strife between he and his Lord. Usually it's interpreted that this guy is a slave or a criminal of some kind, and he's buying off. Not like we consider buying off. This is the legal way of buying off getting his justice. Okay? So, what happens? The guy gets his wish. Notice the favor was granted for the forlorn man. And for the first time, his Lord looked on that ancient work of men, that piece of gold, that cup. Then the dragon stirs. When the dragon stirred, and we get a phrase, a formulaic phrase, that is used, I think this is like the 3rd or 4th time in the poem, strife was renewed. He slithered along the stones. He found the enemy's footprint. And we're told, 2291, thus can an undoomed man easily survive wreck and ruin if he holds to the ruler's grace and protection. This is the narrator's version of Beowulf's comment at line 572, 573, which is that's 370. Weird often spares an undoomed man when his courage endures. Okay, so the Horde Guardian searches along the ground. He's trying to find the man who had stolen the cup. He kept circling his grave all around. And I think what the narrator is telling us here is, get off there. Here's the barrel. The dragon comes out, and what does he do? He goes in ever increasing circles. And what's he doing when he does that? He's just spraying fire. He's destroying everything. Okay?
All over a cup.
All for a cup. Why? The other day I said dragons are, evil accountants. Not, again, satanic, greedy accountants. But they're not accounting other people's stuff. They're counting, so to speak, their own. So, He goes off and starts burning everything. Fit 33. He burns the bright quartz. It strikes horror in the men. Hostile flyer would leave nothing alive. The worms, warfare, dragons are also called worms. W-Y-R-M is how they're spelled in Old English. Was widely seen, etc. Hated and harmed the Geatish people. Okay? And then what? He hastened to his hoard, his dark and hidden hall, before the break of day. So it's like night comes and the dragon does this. And before the sun rises, the dragon goes back into his hall. When his barrow is called a hall, just like Grendel in his mother's cave is called a hall. Why? Because the hall is where the person who owns it, so to speak, rules. He is called a Hirda, just like Grendel and his mother are, and just like Hrothgar is, just like Beowulf is. In other words, this is his home. Various states in the United States have what's called the castle doctrine. Somebody comes and tries to break into your home, you can go all medieval on them. You can pretend it's your castle. That is, any and all necessary force to defend your castle. That's what Grendel's mother did when Beowulf attacked her, okay? So, the dragon's castle has been invaded, looted. What did the dragon do? Torched everything. Justice, so to speak, from his perspective. Now what does the dragon do? It goes back to its hall. It curls up, probably like a dog, walks around its hoard 3 or 4 times, lays down, and goes back to sleep. Okay? So how long will the dragon sleep? Until somebody wakes it up. So, to Beowulf, the news, 23:24, was quickly brought of that horror, that his own home, the best of buildings, it burned. Apparently, Beowulf wasn't home when the dragon came. To the good man, we're told, 23:27, to the good man that was painful in spirit, greatest of sorrows. That doesn't mean Beowulf's like, that rat bastard dragon, no. It means Beowulf internalizes what is going on. Beowulf does what most people do when something really horrific happens. Why me? Because what does why me imply?
This is happening to me?
Well, yeah.
Just me.
Because of something I've done. The wise one believed he had bitterly offended the ruler of all, the eternal Lord, against the old law. Beowulf thinks, I offended God somehow. We're never told that Hrothgar thinks that when Grendel comes. He might come to think that after 12 years, shortly before he delivers his homily. I think when he's delivering his homily, that's Hrothgar, essentially, that's Hrothgar's confession. That's Hrothgar going, I screwed up big time. I got too big for my britches. I thought I was the greatest thing, since sliced bread. And Grendel had to come and do what? Take me down a notch. Beowulf's thinking, what have I done? Okay? Have we been told at this point anything Beowulf's done that could validate this? No, unless, grasping at straws here, unless Beowulf is the Lord that the thief took the cup to. But we're not told that. His Lord may just be someone of higher rank than him. Okay? And usually if you're a thief, it means you're pretty low rank. Thievery, Anglo-Saxon law was capital punishment. No matter what you stole. Okay? So, his breath within groaned with dark thoughts. And then the poet tells us that was not his custom. Why wasn't it Beowulf's custom to have these dark thoughts? Did we see these dark thoughts earlier? Battle with Grendel and Grendel's mother? No. What do we see on Beowulf's part there? Two things. One, extreme confidence. Is it arrogance? The Christian how do I put this phrase? The Christian allegorical interpreters of the poem do want to say it's Beowulf's arrogance. Okay? I think they're entirely wrong. Why can Beowulf have extreme confidence? Because he wins. That's a pretty good reason. And 30.
I mean, he's able to back it up.
It's not, boasting if you actually do everything you say you can do. All right?
He also has, he accepts that if he loses, it's meant to be.
He accepts the outcomes. I mean, he has that supreme confidence, but he also says what? Hey, man, if God wills it, I'll live. If he doesn't, I don't. It's not, I can do this all on my own. So, what does he do? Beowulf orders his men to make for him, the protector of warriors, a wondrous war shield. Many scholars, not a consensus, not most by any means, but many scholars take this passage to be an allusion to possibly, which one is it? I want to say the Iliad, but I think it's the Aeneid, to the description in one of those two epics where the creation of Achilles' shield is described. I think it's the Aeneid, okay? Where we get this long passage describing it. Well, we get this description of Beowulf ordering a shield to be made. Notice, not one made just of wood. Why not? This thing is going to be covered with iron. Why? Louder?
So it doesn't burn.
Yeah. Dragon, fire, wood, don't mix. The Longa nobleman had to, and then the poet tells us this, line 2341. Okay, we still have 800 lines to go. Take that back, 900 lines to go. The Longa nobleman had to endure the end of his lone days. Lana days is the word that's used there. Same word we saw in Wanderer and Seafarer. Of this world's life. And so did the worm. We've got 900 lines left to go. Less than, more than a third, less than a fourth of the poem. And what has the poet just told us?
That one of them is going to
They're both going to die. Beowulf's going to die, the dragon's going to die. Whatever happened to the principle of suspense? Drag it out until the final. Anglo-Saxons did not have the concept of literary suspense like we do. For them, this doesn't give anything away. Why? Because we don't know how Beowulf dies. We don't know how the dragon dies. Okay? And so did the worm, though he had held for so long his hoarded wealth. So, Beowulf, we're told, scorned to seek out the far-flung flyer, the dragon, with his full force of men, a large army. He's not rousing all of his troops. He did not dread that attack, nor did he worry much about the dragon's warfare. His strength or valor, that is, Beowulf doesn't worry about his strength and valor against the dragon. He's thinking, I'm Beowulf, won't be a problem. He did not dread that attack. Why? Because he had survived many battles, barely escaping alive in the crash of war, after he had cleansed, triumphant hero, the hall of Hrothgar. Poet's telling us, after he defeated the Grendelkin, Beowulf survived all kinds of battles, barely escaped, and we're going to get one of those stories told. All right? It was not the least of hand-to-hand combat. when Helak was slain. This is the second allusion to Helak's Frisian raid. In the chaos of battle, the king. I skipped that one. Where did my spot go? Yep. When Helak was slain in the chaos of battle, the king of the Geats, the lord of his people in the land of the Frisians, the son of Revel, died sword drunk, beaten by blades. That is, his body was drunk with swords.
A lot of stories.
He drank more than he could handle. He's just a pincushion. Okay? Germanic ethical framework, fourfold Germanic ethic: duty to one's lord, duty to one's kin, duty to avenge one's lord and kin. Helak is both lord and kin. All right? So, Beowulf escaped from there through his own strength. You don't have to die with your lord if you can avenge him. Beowulf does. All right? He took a long swim. Swim. And what does he do on that long swim? He bears with him in his arms the battle armor of 30 men when he climbed to the cliffs. The when he climbed to the cliffs is when he gets back from the long swim with 30 suits of armor. Where's the long swim from? The northwestern coast of Europe. He leaves the land of the Frisians. He swims. He goes around Denmark into what today is southern Sweden, which is the land of the Geats. Again, he ain't like us. Okay? Some interpreters and such have reinterpreted that word swim to mean to row. Got in a boat, etc. So, by no means did the Hetware need to exult. Okay? Hetware, Frankish tribe apparently on the side of the Frisians, meaning allies with the Frisians. Why did they not need to exult? When they marched on foot to him, bore their linden shields, few came back from that brave soldier to seek their homes. Litotes. How few went back to their homes after battling with Beowulf? None. He wiped them all out. It doesn't mean he kills all the Hetware who live anywhere, just those who were involved in this skirmish. The son of Ecgtheow crossed the vast sea, wretched, solitary, returned to his people. So his king is dead now. And Hygg offers him the hoard and kingdom, rings and royal throne. Hygg, where is she? Hygg is here. She's Helak's wife. She may have offered him more than just the hoard and kingdom. Like me, herself. Often in classical literature, and sometimes in some Germanic myths and such, if a king dies, the queen is offered to the conquering. Well, if someone conquers you, then the queen is spoils of war. Okay, this isn't that kind of thing. Some have suggested she offers herself to Beowulf, which is another way of making him king, by the way. Okay? Notice, he doesn't take the offer she gives him, which is the hoard, the treasury of the kingdom, and the kingdom. All right? She did not trust that her son could hold the ancestral seat against foreign hosts now that Helak was dead. Why? Is he mentally incapable? No. Alfred the Great never should have become king. He had 4 older brothers. One of them was, we would suggest, retarded. Wasn't capable of holding it. Okay? So, despite their misery, by no means could they prevail upon that prince at all that he should become lord over Hardred. That is, not only Hygg tries to convince Beowulf to become king, but the people do. And he says, no. Why? It's his throne. The reason probably she does this, and the advisors, is because he's not old enough. So what does Beowulf do instead? We're told. He upheld him in the folk with friendly counsel. It doesn't mean he holds up Hardred. It means Beowulf probably stands behind the gift stool and flexes. Let's say you're an enemy tribe. Helak, who's known for his valor and strength, Helak is described in one of those two other historical texts that I mentioned as a giant. Not like, somebody who's 6'9". I mean like 9 feet. Giant. They even say you can go to where he's buried and see his bones. His leg bone's supposed to be like this long. All right? Thigh bone. So, Beowulf agrees to protect Hardred. All these neighboring notions know Beowulf's still alive. He's protecting the throne. They stay back. Until he was older. When Hardred reaches a certain age, he becomes king. We don't know how long that time is. This partially gets at my little thing of how old is Beowulf at various points in the story. We don't know how long it is before Helak goes off on the Frisian raid and such. So, he rules the Waiter Gates, 2379. Now we're told, wretched exiles, the sons of Ohtera sought him out across the seas. They had rebelled against the Shelvings ruler, the best of all the Sea Kings. So notice 2380 following. And this is where I'm going to start explaining some of this. Okay? You know more or less this genealogy. It doesn't play here, except for Onela being mentioned here, as having married Halfdane's youngest child, his daughter, probably named Yrsa. That name comes from other Norse texts. Okay? So then you have the Geats. Hrethel's the founder, not the founder like progenitor way back. He's the founder of those that we see within the poem. So you have Heribald and Halfdan. We're going to leave them aside for a moment. Helak's the third child, marries Hygd, has 2 children. She's never named, and we only know she marries this Eoler because there's a single allusion. So drop that. And then Hardred. Hardred never marries because he dies too young to marry, probably. And then we have an unnamed daughter. We don't have any source that indicates her name. Okay? Who marries Ecgtheow. They produce Beowulf. Why is there no source, name, etc. for her? This is totally unknown anywhere other than in this poem. Ecgtheow is not named anywhere else. Beowulf is not named anywhere else. Okay? The Swedes, or the Shelvings. Onyentheow is the father. He has 2 sons. Othera, Onela. Eldest, youngest. Notice the names, by the way, of sons all alliterate with their fathers. Other than here, which is interesting, and here, which is interesting. Halfdane, Haregar, Hrothgar, Halga, daughters don't. Hrethric, Hrothmund, Hereward, etc. Heribald, Halfdan, Helak, Hardred, Onyenthal, Ohtera, Onela, Eanmund, Eadgils, they're all vowels, right? 2 that do not. Beowulf, Beal. Why? That's part of not from around these parts. They're different. So, back over here. Hardred becomes king, and then we're told these wretched exiles flee from their king, the ruler of the Shelvings. Well, how is he the king if these 2 are still alive? Here's how. From other sources we know, Onela, 95% sure, killed his older brother. he usurped the throne. Sound like anybody who's not named up here? Yeah, him. Unfair. A kinslayer. Okay? So, Onla kills his older brother, takes the throne. What does that do for these two, who are the son of the rightful but dead king? Well, that opens up some problems between them and their uncle, okay? Especially between Eanlund, because he's next in line. So, they flee to the land of the Geats. Hardred gives them refuge. All right? So Hardred's giving them refuge. Now what does Onla want to do? Wretched exiles, the sons of Otra, sought him, that is Hardred, out across the seas. They had rebelled against the Sylvings' ruler. Look at the description of him, the Sylvings' ruler. The best of all the sea kings who dispensed treasure in the Swedish lands, a famous king. Now, the poet seemingly is going out of his way to talk about Onla, the absolute best of all Swedish kings. Okay? That cost him his life. That what? That the action Hardred did in granting refuge to these two cost him his life. Hardred dies because of this. For his hospitality, giving them refuge, he took a mortal hurt with the sword of a stroke. That son of Helak, the son of Onyenthau, afterwards went to seek out his home. Once Hardred lay dead. Onla kills Hardred. Or possibly, I've got this guy circled and connected with Onla, okay? But it's usually taken to be just Onla. Onla kills Hardred. What should Beowulf now do? Who's Hardred to Beowulf? King and cousin. He should kill Onla, just like he killed the guy who killed his king and uncle, Helak. And we're going to get that guy named a little bit later. And we're going to find out how Beowulf kills him. Interestingly, at this point in the poem, Beowulf doesn't immediately kill his king/cousin's slayer. Okay? Look at the lines. When this kind of hit me for the first time back in the mid-90s, I immediately got on Ansex and started raising some questions. And man, you would think I said the most horrible things about Beowulf because people were coming out of the woodwork like I was blaspheming God himself. So that Onyenthau, the son of Onyenthau, afterwards went to seek out his home. So after he kills Hardred, he gets back in his boat and he goes back home. And let Beowulf hold the high throne and rule the gates. That was a good king. It's the third time we get Fakwas Godkinning. The first time is talking about Skjoldskjeving. The second time is preceded with that Ak, and it's talking about Hrothgar because he's being kind of damned with faint praise in comparison to Beowulf. And then we get this one. One of the questions I read, one of the assertions I made is that that was a good king is not referencing the last named individual, which is Beowulf. It's referencing the previous named king, Onla. Look at the line. So, the son of Onyenthau, skip everything afterwards went. The son of Onyenthau let Beowulf hold the high throne. What does let mean? Say that again. Allowed him to do it. So when you let someone do something, who's in the position of power or authority? You are. If you say, I'll let Sky do something, that means I can stop Sky from doing that. Is that a problem? For me, it is. It's a huge problem because it means Onola has control, power, authority over Beowulf. And yet Beowulf was supposedly the one standing behind Hardred, protecting him. Now, that was before Hardred came into his kingship, when he was still probably a minor, but then he becomes king. Does Beowulf then at that point just say, all right, kid, you're on your own now? Hardly. But even if that were the case, what should Beowulf do after Onola kills him? Kill Onola. Duty to one's lord, duty to one's kin, duty to avenge one's lord and kin. And Beowulf doesn't. In fact, it's implied time passes so that Onola, who has just killed this king, in one sense, he now does what? King of the Swedes, king of the Geats. He killed their king. He's got the power now. And what does he do? Let's see. Who should rule? What's the phrase? 3 words. In my place. Beowulf or Sky, you get to be king. He let him hold the high throne and rule the gates. He allowed him to do that. Then 34. Fit 34. In later days. Usually in other literature, other Germanic, other Anglo-Saxon literature, when you hear in later days, that implies not just 2 weeks have passed. It implies a year or more has passed. He did not forget that prince's fall. The he, Beowulf. So, time passes, and Beowulf remembers the death of Hardred and befriended ENGL, okay, remember, who came over here. Because when Hardred was killed, Hardred wasn't the only one killed. Hardred was killed. Did I not circle it? Yeah. And Eanmund was killed. So what? Eanmund is what? Leave him aside for a moment. Eanmund is the rightful king of the Swedes. Until he gets killed. Who kills Eanmund? This is where it's a little bit of ambiguity. Onwa is the one ultimately responsible. Why? Because he marches against the land of the Geats. He invades, okay, the Geats are Beowulf. He invades Beowulf's homeland when Beowulf's not the king, Hardred is. And Hardred gets killed, and whether it's Onola or his chief thane, Weston, this is going to be important at the end of the poem, or Weston, one of those two, or maybe both together, kill Eanmund. All right? So now, in later days, Beowulf remembers Hardred's dead. It'd be kind of hard for him to forget because he's king. He, Beowulf. And what does he do? He befriends ENGL. Well, who's ENGL? He's, because his brother's dead, he is now the rightful king of the Swedes, even though he's still alive. So we're told. He befriended ENGL, the wretched exile, just like he was a wretched exile before. Across the open sea, he gave support to the son of Otra with warriors and weapons. So, Beowulf, either personally or by sending troops and he stays home, Beowulf does what? He supports ENGL in his, for lack of a better word, rebellion against Onola. So what, therefore, happens? Beowulf, whether it's through him personally or through his troops, kills Onola. What has Beowulf just done? He's gotten that vengeance. He avenged his lord and kin, Hardred. So once Onela is killed, Eadgils is now king. So, at the time of this, not these stories, at the time that Beowulf is now king, and he's got the dragon problem. Beowulf is king of the Geats. Eadgils is king of the Swedes. All right? Beowulf's going to go fight the dragon. He's going to pick a certain number of men. One of them is going to be this guy named Beowulf. All right? Whose father was Weston. Weston is probably the one responsible for the death of Eanmund. All right? I know, it's really confusing. Beowulf dies. Sorry to give it away, but the poet already did. Beowulf dies. Who's going to become king after Beowulf? Beowulf. Because Beowulf is going to say, you are the last of the Waymundings. It's the first time we've heard this. That Beowulf and Beowulf are related. Not father-son, not cousins. They're probably distant cousins. Okay? Beowulf's going to become king. Over here. King of the Geats now. What problem does that present? Okay? So he becomes king over here. Who's king over here? Him. Go back to the story Beowulf tells about Freywaru's marriage to ENGL. Right? So you got Freywaru in her hall, in ENGL's hall. She has her retainers, her Danish retainers, and the one young cocky guy's, strutting around wearing the armor of an old dead Heathobardish warrior, and another old Heathobardish warrior speaks to the son of the dead Heathobardish warrior and says, look at him. He is rubbing your nose in it. That armor belongs to you. Are you going to let him do that? Get it. Strife is renewed. Why do I tell that? What is he alluded to? There's a feud. How do feuds end? Is it just, you killed one of mine, I'm going to kill one of yours, and we're even Steven? No. It only ends with the annihilation of one party. What did Beowulf do to the Hetwara in the battle with Helak and Frisiray? He killed those troops. That's going to be alluded to later also. Eadgils' father was killed by Beowulf's father. We are immediately in the story that Beowulf told about what's going to happen with Freyr.
Rudolph is Onela's son.
Beowulf is Weston's son.
And
Weston is probably the one, it's suggested, who killed Eanmund. At the orders of Onela, because he's his thing. Remember, anything a warrior does in battle, it's as if the warrior doesn't do it, it's the king. Okay?
Is Thane like right-hand man? Was Thane to Onela?
Yeah, Weston was right-hand man, Thane to Onela. So when Weston kills Eanmund, what does he create between his descendants and Eanmund's descendants or living relatives? He rips open a feud. Beowulf dies because the dragon kills him. Beowulf becomes king, and there is no longer peace between the Swedes and the Geats, which there hadn't been before, right? We haven't even talked about it because we haven't gotten to it yet. The reason the Swedes and the Geats are not at peace, Blackthought, remember that's what his name means? What does he do? Before the Frisian raid, he attacks the Swedes. He attacks Onyenthal. He kills Onyenthal. Okay, that right there opens up a feud. And one of the things we're going to be told shortly, that he does when he attacks Onyenthal, let's see if I can find the exact spot. I'll find it when we get to it. We're told he deprives Onenthal's wife of her treasure. Superficially, the way that's often read is he steals her treasure like the treasure that Wealthiel had. It's also read another way.
Like her ability to carry on the bloodline.
No. Kind of. He rapes her. He steals her treasure. Okay? Not her virginity, because she's already got kids. Which, virginity was important then. Not saying it's not important now anyway. He rapes her. Tends to make husbands a little unhappy. Okay? Which is why Onenthal, this is all part of the attack. All's fair in love and war kind of a thing. So, Beowulf leads the attack. Onela is killed. Eengils becomes king. All right? So, he wreaked his revenge 2396. That is, Beowulf achieved his revenge. With cold, sad journeys, took the king's life. And so the son of Ecgtheow had survived every struggle, every terrible onslaught with brave deeds until that one day. Until that one day means he's not surviving this one. When he had to take a stand against the serpent. So he takes 12 men, you got a footnote, literally 1 of 12, Beowulf, Wealhtheow, and 10 others. But there's actually 11 others. Why? Because one of them isn't a warrior. Who's the 11th man? Or as your footnote mentions, the 13th man. The thief. Michael Crichton wrote a novel. Jurassic Park novelist. Wrote a ton of novels. Michael Crichton wrote a novel called The 13th Warrior. It was turned into a film with Antonio Banderas as, this 13th warrior. He wrote this novel because he's having a talk with a friend, and the friend started disparaging the poem Beowulf. And he's like, no, Beowulf's great stuff, etc. Anyways, so he writes this novel kind of about Beowulf from the perspective of the thief. Okay? Anyways, he goes on. He needs the thief. Why? To show him where this barrow is. Beowulf apparently doesn't know. And we're told he goes, the thief leads him against his will. He doesn't want to. And we're told, 2409, he went against his will to where he alone knew the earth hall stood, an underground cave, near the crashing waves, the surging sea. Inside it was full of gems and metal bands. A monstrous guardian, eager for combat, kept his gold treasures ancient under the ground. Getting them was no easy bargain for any man. Yes, Harm.
A thief who doesn't want to go into a hall that steals a cup and is leading 12 warriors, this is just the Hobbit.
Yeah, pretty much. It's where Tolkien gets the idea
Okay.
for the Hobbit.
I was gonna say it's
Yep.
it's like 1-to-1.
Well,
Almost 1-to-1. It's close.
and interestingly, if you compare it with the Hobbit, in Tolkien's The Hobbit, the reason Bilbo Baggins is chosen by Gandalf to go with the dwarves to break into Smaug's horde is because we're specifically told there are no heroes available. All the heroes have left Middle-earth. So instead, they get a thief.
The next best thing.
Is a thief, a midget thief. Okay? I'm not, disparaging small people. He's literally, that's kind of what a hobbit is. So, we're told, the battle-hardened king sat down on the cape. So Beowulf and his men go. He sits down overlooking the ocean and the bear over here. Why does he sit? He wished good health to his hearth companions, the gold friend of the Geats. His heart was grieving, restless, ripe for death. That kind of tells us Beowulf's thinking what? Oh, What a way to die. Mono a Draco, man against dragon. This will be a story to be told, for thousands of years. Stuff of legends. The doom was immeasurably near that was coming to meet that old man. I love that line. It's like, doom is just hanging around. Doom here is fate. Fire to death. Okay? Seek his soul's treasure. That is doom. Wanted to seek his soul's treasure. Split asunder his life and body. The soul, notice, is what? It's the treasure of the life. That's why this thing is called the breast hoard. It's the hoard composed of the breast, chest, that holds what? The soul. I talked about the other day, Ulysses has that translation, that one passage where he talked about the life's dwelling place or something like that. And the Old English is just the life's body. It's just the flesh. Not for long was the spirit of that noble king enclosed in its flesh. It's like someone turns over the egg timer and the sand starts falling. And so what does Beowulf do? Somebody read just that line 24, 26.
In my youth, I survived many storms of battle, times of strife.
Okay. How should Beowulf sound? It depends on how old he is. Let's say Hardred ruled for 10 years. Let's say Helak ruled for 10 years after Beowulf came back from killing the Grindelkin. I think we discussed, when Beowulf goes to fight Grendel and stuff, he's, what did I say, he's somewhere between 67 and maybe 72. So then you add 20 years onto that, 87 to 92, and then add 50 years onto that, 137 to 142. In my youth. He's old. I still remember. Let me put my damn teeth back. It's. Or is it because he's like an Old Testamental Genesis type character who, they lived to 800, 900, 700, 600. It's Beowulf. Is he, because he's is he that kind of different?
So I know these guys, they are all about, dying in battle, not dying in old age. But so what is like the life expectancy?
We don't.
Just like.
It's not 147.
I don't know.
Because it's not 147 today.
I mean, when is the cutoff age of a man being unable to survive a battle against a younger man?
If he can't hold a sword, that's a pretty good indication.
All right.
But Beowulf can. We're going to see Beowulf engage the dragon 3 times in battle. He can not only hold a sword, he can hold his shield. In fact, he can not only hold his sword, he can swing it so hard, his sword shatters. So he hasn't lost much strength. Again, he ain't like us. We are supposed to embrace the marvelous aspect, not explain it away. So, I still remember them all. I was 7 years old when the Prince of Treasures, friend to his people, took me from my father. Beowulf was brought up as a noble foster child in the noble court. Probably his court. Okay? Raised by his grandfather. Okay? Hrethel the king held me and kept me, gave me gems and feasts, remembered our kinship. I was no more hated to him while he lived, a man in his stronghold, than any of his sons. Well, that's a strange way of putting it. He didn't hate me any more than he hated his other kids. Haribald and Hathkin and my own Helak. So this is where we get them named. Okay, Beowulf's getting ready to go fight the dragon. And he's going to tell us a story.
Is he didn't hate me as much as he hated my other kids. Would that be an example of do we think that that's humor?
No, I think it's litotes.
Litotes?
Because what's the opposite of hate? He loved me as much as he loved, he's saying. Okay? For the eldest, Heribald, we're told, undeservedly a deathbed was made by the deeds of a kinsman, after Helak, with his horn bow, struck down his own dear lord with an arrow. Another kinslaying. Totally accidental.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Totally accidental.
I like those rifles.
Those two names, Heribald and Havkin, they're taken by, I would say, virtually all Beowulf scholars. This is an allusion to Germanic myth. This is an allusion to the beginning of Ragnarok. Because in Ragnarok, Hother kills Balder. Heribald, Balder, Havkin, Hother. Philologically, that is following the language, the rules of Germanic languages and accounting for an Anglo-Saxon version compared to a Norse version. These are exactly what these second and first elements are. Hother took his horn bow with an arrow and shot Balder. The arrow in Germanic myth is made out of mistletoe. It's the only thing that can kill Balder. And it happens because Loki puts them up to it. Balder is invincible. Hey, let's throw things at Balder. So they're throwing spears and knives and rocks and all kinds of stuff. None of them hurt him. Until Hother gets blindfolded and Loki gives him something with a sharp point made of mistletoe. Okay? That's an allusion in the story. So, he gets killed. One brother to another with a bloody shaft. That was a fight beyond settling, a sinful crime shattering the heart. Yet it had to be that a nobleman lost his life unavenged. Why? Why is Heribald's life unavenged? So Havkin's the killer. Two people that we know of could have avenged his death. Helak or his father, Hrethel. How do you avenge the death of a brother/son when a brother/son is the killer? Kill his brother, and then what does he become? The kinslayer. Family gets even more worse. Kill your son. It's almost like we are in ancient Greek mythology and the story of Agamemnon and his father, Atreus, etc. And his brother, just look it up. The Agamemnon family, his ancestors, were horrible. One brother with his other brother, they got into a fight, and so, I can't remember all the names. I think his father of Agamemnon kills his brother's children, chops them up, and feeds them to his brother in a big feast to, so to speak, bury the hatchet. The father of the dead children issues this curse, and that curse just goes on down through the family of what are called the Atreides, the sons of Atreus. Aeschylus's entire series of plays called the Oresteia, Agamemnon, Libation Berries, Orestes, Agamemnon, in that order, I think that's the order, are all about this myth and how justice comes out of it. Okay? So, 9:54, 10 minutes. We obviously won't get to the end. 2444. It was as sad as if. The as if implies Beowulf's going to tell us a story. Many critics read this, however, this is not Beowulf telling a story. He's describing what happened to Hrethel. What happened to Hrethel? He had to live to see his young son ride on the gallows. It means die. Let him recount a story, a sorry song, while his son hangs a comfort only to the ravens. And he cannot, through old and wise, though old and wise, offer him any help. Each and every morning calls to mind his son's passing away. Hrethel. He wakes up every morning. What does he think about? Heribald, my dead Heribald. He will not care to wait for any other heir or offspring. When the first one has tasted evil deeds and fell death, he looked sorrowfully on his son's dwelling. Why? Now, that might mean home, or it might mean the body. The deserted wine hall, the windswept home, bereft of joy, the riders sleep, heroes in their graves, there is no heart music, no laughter in the court, as there had been long before. It also sounds like what else? The lay of the last survivor. Everybody's dead. He's the last one living. And so what does this guy do? He keens a lament all alone for his lost one. Too vast to him seem the fields and townships. So the protector of the waiters, Hrethel, bore surging in his breast heartfelt sorrows for Haribald. He could not in any way make amends. This is bringing to a head, I think, the whole problem of that Germanic fourfold ethic. This, I think, is something for which Jacques Derrida's term, deconstruction, fully applies. That fourfold ethic totally deconstructs. In other words, this shows it is unworkable as an ethical system. Keep in mind, ethical system doesn't have anything to do with morality. Ethical system refers to how people relate to each other. Not physically, not genetically. How you get along in a community. This ethical system, it doesn't work. It only ends in death and sorrow. So what happens? This protector of the raiders, 2468, with the sorrow which oppressed him too sorely, he gave up man's joys, chose God's light, left to his children his land and strongholds, when he departed this life. He dies. Why does he die? Had a graduate student several years ago. Did he commit suicide? I'm like, not likely, because it wasn't an option for a hero. Probably dies broken-hearted. Then there was strife between Swedes and Geats. Why? After Hrethel died, until the sons of Onyenthal, which I don't have written up here, they're not these two. I mean, it's ambiguous. Okay? Were bold and warlike, wanted no peace over the hill, but came around the hill of sorrows. I'm going to skip a bunch. Then Hathkin rode in. Okay? That battle was fatal for Hathkin, king of the Geats. I think I said Helak before. Misspoke. It was Hathkin who probably took advantage of Onyenthal's wife. Okay? He gets killed. Hathkin does. And let's see here. We're going to skip some of that. We got 7 minutes. Picking up around 2500, Beowulf mentions slaying Day Raven, champion of the Hugas, with my bare hands in front of the whole army. That's alluding to, that's part of the Frisian raid. How does he kill Day Raven? He squeezes him to death. With the strength of 16 men. Eyes start bulging out, It's interesting, within what we're told in the poem, in terms of any of the specific battles Beowulf has, Grendel's mother, Day Raven, etc., and even the dragon. Well, let me back up. Beowulf doesn't kill any humans with a sword. He only uses his bare hands. Okay? So now Beowulf says, now the blade's edge, hard hand and hard sword, shall fight for the horde, the dragon horde. 25:10. He speaks again. I have survived many battles in my youth. Now that makes it sound like what? He's 45. In my youth, not when I was in my youth. I will yet, an old folk guardian, meaning king, seek out a feud and do a glorious deed. He's going to seek out a feud. That means what? I'm looking for trouble. Notice, they're sitting outside the dragon's barrow. It's not like there's doors and, an enclosure. If only that evildoer will come out to me from his earth hole. In other words, I may be old, but I ain't stupid. I'm not going in there. Dragon's got to come out. So he says, I wouldn't bear a sword, etc., if I knew of any other way. Yes, I did with a grin. Oh, yeah, the good old days, So, he says, I won't flee a single foot, 25:25, but for us it shall be at the wall as weird decrees. In other words, what will be, will be. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. The ruler of every man. Many translators, this is one thing I really like that Leuza does, translate Old English weird here as God. It's not God. It's pagan Germanic weird. But then he says, as the ruler of every man. Okay? My farm is mind. My mind is firm. Wow. I will forego boasting against this flying foe. Wait on the barrow, that is. You guys stay here. Sound like anything else? You men just stay asleep. I'll fight Grendel. You guys stay. Why did he bring them then?
Moral support.
Moral support. They're cheerleaders off to the side. Go, Beowulf,
What else are they gonna do? Just gotta make sure they get out of the house.
With daring.
He wanted someone to be like, no, I saw it happen. He
Could be witnesses, 25:35. With daring I shall get that gold, or grim death and fatal battle will bear away your lord. And so what does he do? He stands up by a shield. He gets his battle shirt and everything on. He goes by the wall, and we're told. We get a description of the barrow, and there's an anachronism. All right? Or there's a detail that tells us geographically where this barrow is. And it's not in ancient Denmark. And it's not in ancient Germany. Because we're told, 25:45, there are stone arches standing. Who invented the arch? Rome. Ancient Germans did not have arches. They would build an opening to a barrow like this. Get one big stone, put it like that, another big stone like that, and put a big stone on top. You go to barrows, you go to Stonehenge today, not built by the Germans, built by ancient Celts. They all look like that. It was the Romans who perfected that. Anglo-Saxon poet, let me rephrase that. If this were a Germanic poet composing the poem 600, 700 AD in what is now modern northern Germany or Denmark, Christianity had not yet reached those areas in 700. They wouldn't even know about these. So it probably indicates a location for the poet who creates this, definitely in England, or maybe northern, definitely in England, okay? So, what does Beowulf have to do to get the dragon to come out of the hoard? Louder? Well, that would be one way. It's not what he does, though. We're told, he grasps a sword, I know we only have a minute left, and Beowulf yells at the dragon. 25:50. Enraged, the ruler of the waiter gates let a word burst forth from his breast, shouted starkly. The sound echoed. Hate was stirred up. Why? Because the hoard warden, Lord of the Rings, recognized the voice of a man. What does recognize mean? How is recognize different than heard?
He's heard it before.
Heard it before?
Comprehend it.
Maybe understands it. We'll stop there. And we will definitely finish Beowulf on Thursday. That will not be a problem. Okay? Sorry this is taking so long. I'll put up a quiz to cover, I know we partially covered this, from like 1,500 to 2,500, or actually to a spot. You heard the voice of a man. All right. See you whenever on Wednesday. Sheesh.